Hello, ladies. Thank y'all for joining early. I love it when a plan comes together. I love it when people are on time. So I appreciate y'all, Watson family and Beppy. I'm so glad you were able to get the information and join. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I got two different clocks going with two different times. My phone is telling me 7. My computer's telling me 6:58, 5:58 for those in Central Time, and 6:58 here in Eastern Time. So I'm gonna give it one more minute, and then I'm gonna get us started. Hopefully y'all came with your questions. If you feel comfortable, please get on the screen. I'd love to see y'all's faces so mine isn't the only one up here, but if you don't, that's okay too. I am excited to have y'all on here. And if you're like me, um, getting here, being here is a thing because life definitely lifes, and there are things that try to get in your way of you getting somewhere. So signing up is one thing, showing up is something completely different. So the fact that you signed up and showed up, yeah, give yourself a hand because I'm sure giving myself one because from turning my computer on and it deciding to reboot when it was time to get on. Don't you just love technology when it's doing what it's doing? But we are on here. We are together. I have a webinar jam packed with good information to help students and the parents and people supporting them to develop their essays. So we are going to get started. All right. So we're here tonight to talk about getting those college admissions essays done right, done well, positioning your student or you, if you're the student, in the best light possible as you're getting ready to do this or thinking about it for next year because nothing's wrong with thinking about it early, right? We are at the last of October, and certainly in the midst of college application season. So you could be working on your essay for this year or thinking about it for next year. Or if you have some rolling deadlines, you could be doing it later. So that's what we're here to talk about, and we're going to get it going. So, what we're going to talk about today, what we're covering, we're going to talk about how uniqueness leads to the best college admissions essays. You may have heard if you talk to admissions counselors or guidance counselors at school that, you know, some essay topics have been done so much that they don't, college admissions officers don't even want to, like, it automatically eliminates you if you start to talk about what your mission trip did or how you volunteered and how you changed completely because you volunteered. Those topics have been so overdone that college admissions officers rarely want to see them. We're going to talk about an essay success story, and we're going to talk about an essay fail story. We're also going to talk about what a strong essay does for you, and then the components of what a strong essay is. So I thought I'd start this off by sharing my story, and my uniqueness will give you a little bit of insight into me, why this work is important to me, and then how it leads to the essay I wrote to get me into college, as well as how I've worked with students over the last 10 years to guide them in the process of writing their essays. So you see me there with my Raggedy Ann doll, if you will, and that's my uncle and my sister next to me. So that's me and my older sister. I am one of three, and we are all 5 years apart. I actually just celebrated my younger sister's birthday last Friday. And as one of three, I'm the middle girl. So that's my oldest sister you see with me there, and my uncle. So me, circa 1975, with my Raggedy Ann doll. I love that doll, and I can still see it clearly today. And then what that said about me, or what that taught me, was I grew up loving reading, writing, and I even played teacher. So I know we got some folk on here that know about playing teacher, but I played that really early, and that just led to my love of understanding that I love stories. So I loved reading. I read early, and therefore I wanted to get in the play classroom as much as possible, because that allowed me to get to reading some books. Hey, now y'all seeing me in elementary school. Look at elementary Rochelle. Rochelle is, yeah, you see my bump bob with the smile and the turtleneck, just excited down in New Orleans, Louisiana in the fall, where I'm sure it was real hot, but I was wearing my fall clothes. But the point of this slide is to share the part of my story that talks about how I had so much support from my family. And having that support from my family was critical in my education journey. My teachers identified me as gifted early on, but to be clear, I was not, I had to take a test, or as kids still do have to take a test to get into gifted. And I didn't get into the gifted program in elementary school, but I was always in the high achievers classes. I didn't get into the gifted program until middle school, or junior high school is what it was called in New Orleans. And getting into that gifted program in junior high school meant that I had to leave my district and catch the city public bus across town, an hour and a half, 2 hours every day, and then back home in the evenings to get to my junior high school. And that junior high school, while it was a public school where it had the neighborhood kids coming, it also had a little pocket of a program of gifted kids, and I was one of them. So I think they were kind of piloting it then, so we were early in the program of it, but I was one of the kids in that program, and that took me way far from home. At 12 years old, I was catching the bus and leaving really early at like 6 a.m. to get to school on time, and then coming back in the evening, which was a big feat for a 12-year-old in New Orleans in the 80s, the mid to upper 80s. My teachers were, school was my second home. I'm sure many of you know and feel that way too, whether you love it or not. It's your second home. It's this place that you spend the most time outside of your home. So as a student, your teachers mean everything to you. They are either shaping your education in a good way, or a not so good way, or you working around who they are. So my teachers were everything. They were guiding me to the best of my achievements. So I was in the spelling bees early, and I was a spelling bee champ in my school. I was on the debate team and doing that in school as well. And all of those skills led me, kept me engaged and kept me challenged as a high achieving student. So that teacher support means everything. So even if you're not surrounded by good teachers your whole way, find the teachers that are about your support. Identify them as soon as you can, stay connected to them, get their guidance, get their support. They are important to you. So I started as a result of being identified by my teachers and having my family's support. I was able to get into a college bound or a prep program called Upward Bound, and some of you parents may know that program. It what it is, because it still exists today on many college campuses. It was for underserved students, and I was certainly one of those underserved students and identified as a high achiever. So this program helped me put the pieces in place to stay on track with studying, to make sure I prepared for standardized tests, and every Saturday during the school year, and then 6 weeks during the summer, I was with that program. So this picture you see here is me in the program and two of my cohorts. I actually had lunch with the lady in the middle recently, and she gave me this picture. I hadn't seen it or don't remember it, and so I was so feeling so good about getting this picture. But that program set me up for to be able to identify what college I wanted to apply to. I had a free ride within Louisiana based on my student profile of having good grades, having strong extracurriculars, activities under my belt. And so I could go to any school in Louisiana for free, just like a lot of students have as an option in their home state now. So that gets us to next, where I actually chose to apply to. So I chose to apply to University of Notre Dame, which to a girl in New Orleans at that time, I had never left the state. And how I even came to be aware of Notre Dame was literally a folder in the guidance counselor's office when I was called into the office and asked what schools I planned to apply to. And so, of course, I could go anywhere in Louisiana, but the only school I officially applied to was Notre Dame. And literally, that was based on, well, what is this school? And I pointed to that folder of the Golden Dome with not much knowledge that it was one of the top 25 universities in the country. And that I was a public school student where Notre Dame was not putting recruiting efforts. They were not putting recruiting efforts in the public schools. They had lots of Catholic feeder schools. I was not Catholic. I still am not Catholic. So I was a Baptist girl at a public school, and the chances of that folder being there to catch my attention for me to say, what's this school? I'm interested in looking into that and applying to that. The chances are real slim. And so my guidance counselor got really excited because he knew that I had what it took to apply to Notre Dame. And that's the only school I applied to. But it wasn't as simple as applying, right? My English teacher, Mr. Appleby, who always gets a mention in my Notre Dame, New Orleans to Notre Dame story, he gets that mention because he said to me that he didn't think I should apply to Notre Dame. And he said that to me as I went to him to ask him to review my essay that I was writing. And he told me he didn't think I should apply to Notre Dame. But guess why? Because he did, and he didn't get in. He applied to Notre Dame and didn't get in. So he didn't think my aspirations should be the same thing. I share that because you will always come up against obstacles, and those obstacles can come from the most unexpected places. The adults that should be rooting for your success and encouraging you and supporting you, sometimes you get discouragement. So you have to know that as you are pursuing your education, that it is something that you have to have some ambition about, be strong in knowing what you want to achieve, because you will come up against obstacles. But regardless of what Mr. Appleby said, that essay was done. That essay was a part of my complete application. And this is where we get into talking about your uniqueness. My college essay was about a song. The song is Anita Baker's Fairy Tales, which was a really popular song at the time, an R&B song, a soul song that I was loving because it just spoke to what my life was, it seemed like, as that 17, 18-year-old girl, about how you grow up hearing about all these fairy tales and what you want to achieve. And then you realize that life is nowhere near like those fairy tales. And so you have to pave your own path and be your own person. And that song really spoke to me. So that's what I wrote my essay about. I wrote my essay about how that song, and then I related the song lyrics to the specifics of my life and the different areas and how it spoke to what I was doing, what I was navigating, and how I was shaping, how my life was shaping as a young person. And that was the essay I submitted. That was the essay that was a part of the successful application that got me admitted to Notre Dame. So now we're going to transition into, that was my story, my uniqueness, and how it got me to Notre Dame. And now we're going to translate that into what that means for your uniqueness, your story, and how it translates into getting you to the school that you want to get into. This slide, I think, is very important in terms of sharing. There was a survey done of the top 250 colleges, and they ranked in terms of percentages the importance of the different aspects of a student profile. And as you can see, your essays come only second to your extracurricular profiles. So what activities you're doing outside of the classroom is the top thing that matters. And then coming right under that is your essay. What you do and what you say about what you do in your life are the two biggest categories that will strengthen your college application, that will create the profile. And when your papers are sitting in front of college admissions officers, those two components are the biggest pieces they're looking into. And then you can see coming right after that is your grades and coursework. They want to know what you're looking like in school, what those grades look like, followed by what those test scores are at 15% of the pie and how much they're looking at. And then lastly is your recommendations in those interviews. But that again, that first piece is your extracurriculars, what you're doing, what you're pursuing outside of the classroom. And right after that is what you say about your journey. Those are the two biggest pieces of your college admissions application. So now I'm going to share with you that this quote is from a parent that I worked with, their student, and he actually has graduated from Georgia Tech here in the Atlanta area, which is a very competitive school. But I worked with Nicholas. This quote is from his mother, Charlotte. And when he started his essay, shaping an essay is a bit of art and a bit of science. Students generally want to start out being direct, or talking about just some achievement, but they don't understand that you have to get into the details that show someone that the story you're sharing is unique, is different than what any other kid could put in front of somebody about their story and their life. So Charlotte wrote this to me after Nick was accepted into Georgia Tech. And because she knows we did a one-on-one with him, with having him understand what story he should be telling, like choosing that story, and then developing the pieces of the story he told, so that it would definitely keep the person that was reading it interested and hooked and wanting to know more about him and understanding how he could contribute overall to being a student at Georgia Tech. So this was a success story. She was so excited, and shared with me like she didn't even know how valuable my services were as she started it, and was grateful for it. But that was Nicholas on one end. On the flip, on the other end of that, when an essay is not enough, because essays cannot be enough. And the not enough part is when the rest of your profile isn't as strong as it needs to be. Your essay can be the thing that pulls you over the top, but it also can be minimal if the other pieces of your profile aren't strong enough. And one of my first earliest students came to me in late November, December, and he wanted to apply to some top colleges, but his student profile wasn't that strong in terms of his grades, in terms of what he did outside of the classroom. He wasn't doing much outside of the classroom. He didn't have strong relationships with his teachers, so his recommendations, he could get them, but they weren't glowing recommendations. And so while we developed a really good essay, it was not enough to get him into the school he wanted to. He did end up going to Arizona State, which was one of the schools on his list, but definitely not the top. And so there was some disappointment for the family, who was still grateful because I helped to guide them. But it was also the thing that made me want to say, okay, I have to let families and students know, like, it is not just about the one thing. It is about strengthening your profile as strong as it can be, because you don't want this essay, want everything to be riding on this essay. You want to know what your overall profile looks like, so that you know, compared to the schools you're applying to, where you fit and how likely you are to get in as a result of your full profile. So we don't want to leave everything on the essay. So why is your essay an important part of the application? It allows colleges to connect to a fuller picture of you. It is your chance to fully let them get a glimpse into who you are. And that's important because college admissions officers are looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of applications, and you get a short window to capture their attention, and to not put your application to the side, because they have to move quickly. And having a strong essay is the view into who you are as a person, and that is the thing that will have them uh, say amongst their colleagues around the table. Because if you can imagine a table of counselors, 4 to 5, and they're all assigned a certain number of applications, they're reading these applications, all of them. And at the end of they're reading individually. They all have to come to this table and state the case for why this student should get in over this student, because you can only admit so many students. So your essay allows them to build the case to admit you versus somebody else. It also allows you to show your uniqueness, your style, what you're into, and how you will contribute to the world. So they get all the insights. That's your giving them the detail, gives them the insights into you, and having those insights arms them with what they need to feel good about what you will contribute to campus. Because college admissions officers are trying to build a well-rounded class. They don't want people that are all doing the same thing. They want people that have different backgrounds, different interests. And so when they're looking at your college essay, they're looking at, oh, okay, this person does fencing. This person does field hockey or debate. Those and versus we got 5 people here who all are on the cheerleading team or play soccer, or we don't have anyone that has started an organization that sews things for babies in the NICU. Like those unique elements are the things that's going to help them build a well-rounded class. So this is where you have to embrace your weirdness. At one point, to be weird or to be thought of as weird was not a compliment. But when you really think about it, embracing your weirdness just means embracing what's different about you and how your difference is a good thing. So it requires that you take take a look at who you are. And I know sometimes as teenagers, the goal is to fit in, but the more comfortable you get with understanding what your difference is, with understanding what your uniqueness is, and embracing your weirdness, the better off you'll be, because you'll be confident in showing how you're different than others and how that makes you a desirable part of a whole, or what you're bringing to the group is a good thing because you're comfortable being just who you are as you are. So now we're going to talk literally about what's the components of a strong essay. And you see them laid out here. These 7 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 components. These are the components of a strong essay, and we're going to go through them individually. So the first one is something you can get excited about reading, that the person that reads this can get excited about reading. So you can share with them something, a personal discovery you've made about yourself, a family discovery. You might have discovered that you're into genealogy and you made some great family discovery. Your academic growth, it's always good to show how you started at one point and then ended up in a better point than where you started. And for a lot of people, you don't have to start off at, with straight A's. You might start your journey just doing what's required of you, and then like the light bulb comes on because something of interest, something grabs your interest, and you decide that you really want to do well or improve in some area, and showing that growth can be a great story to share. I just told you my story about how my passion for music, stories, storytelling, all those things combined to have me decide what the topic for my college essay would be. So my love of music came through, my love of storytelling, and my love of just showcasing what I was into at that time brought forth what my essay would be about. And it's the same for you. Somebody could get excited about learning a young woman's interest in music. And then, of course, if you started something from scratch, or if you built something from scratch, you started an organization, or you started, you deep dive because you're into Legos and you really went down the path of doing something with Legos. Like, those are all stories that will give some insight into who you are. So the next most important component is, what is the big idea? So many times students develop essays that feel like they're all over the place and people cannot get the understanding of what that essay is about, because it feels like it's all over the place. So it's you have to get that big idea up front so people will know what they're reading about, and then wrap the big idea up into where you end up as well. So now we get to the compelling story part. So we know you got the big idea up front. We know some of the big stories that you can tell to keep people engaged. Now let's talk about what is a compelling story. So understanding that story is co-creative, meaning when I tell you about my story of growing up in New Orleans, it makes you think about your story of growing up where you're from and what you had to do on your educational pursuit. It may have been good, it may not have been good, but either way, it makes you think of it. So that's what stories do. So you want to make sure your story is engaging with the level of detail that you give to help people make a connection to their own story. So the components literally are, this slide is so important because it breaks so much down. An identifiable character. You become an identifiable character that somebody can relate to. A problem, you have to show that a problem came up for you in your essay. Like, what problem came up for you that you were working through? How did that make you feel to come up against that emotion that you felt in facing the problem that was in front of you? It can be something simple and frustrating, or it can be something amazing. Like, how did it make you feel? And then there was something that happened, something that came in from that problem to show you that there's a way through it. So this piece is called a guide, and that guide does not have to be a person. As this says, it can be just some insight, something that comes to your mind, but this is the part where something comes, you've had some problems show up, and now it becomes clear to you that there is some possibility of working through that, and the insight that comes to you, or the person that comes forth, helps you understand that you can get through it. And then we're getting detailed, right? So no matter if we are doing a long form essay of 800 words, or if we're doing one of 300, that's a mid-range, or getting down to that 100 words, which is a short essay. Either way, you got to get to the detail part of it. And it's easier to write the longer form and then edit down to shorter. So that's why it's always just get it out on the page, whether it's the written page or the blank canvas of the computer screen. Get it out, get the details out. You can always edit it back later. So next up, we describe how that guide helps you navigate through the problem that you've been faced with, and how that guide helps you stay away from failure, or how that guide helps you get to better. And that guide, again, can be a person, or it can be some kind of insight or thought that you've had for yourself. And then the end is your change. You started out one way, you've ended up in a better place or in a different way by the end of that story. These are the elements of a compelling story. And these are the elements you want to make sure are included in your essay. I'm bringing this one back up to just talk about how the reader needs to stay excited. And you think about any story you've heard or any book you've read, you want to keep them excited the whole way through, keep them interested the whole way through, keep them guessing the whole way through. It's important to do that. And the way you can do that is just following the steps from the previous slide. If you have them understand that, make a connection to who you are and a problem you've been faced with, or some kind of difference that is challenging you, and then you find how to work through that, and then you come out on the other side better for it, even if that better for it means you're different, or it seems like it's not in a good position, or you're somehow in a lower position. As long as you come out changed from that experience, that will keep somebody excited to know that, you learned something where you started off high and you ended up lower. You can learn just as much from that as you can from starting lower and going higher in something. This one's pretty critical. So many times students try to write in what they think people want to read in, or what they consider professional. But the reality is people want to hear from your voice, your unique voice. Now, that unique voice does not mean you get to cut things short like you're talking in text form. You have to write full sentences, full paragraphs, etc. But finding your voice and be able to speak as you talk or write as you talk is important. So using your unique voice, showcasing who you are through how you write things is important. And that also can come forth in your excitement for the topic that you're sharing, right? I put some examples here about if you love music, let that come through. You're a gamer, that should come through. If you're a Trekkie, that should come through. Those all show unique sides of who you are, and those should come through in your voice. By the time they are done, the reader, which is the college admissions officer, or the team that ends up reading that essay, should want to know more about you, should want you on that campus to be like, this is a person that's going to fully contribute to our college community. They're going to do great things here, and they're going to go on and do great things in the world. And they will get that insight because your passion will come through, what you're excited will come through, and it will showcase how determined you are. So all of those things will come through, and they are going to want to know more about the person who's putting that much determination, ambition, and effort on a page. Yeah, so I put this here because I do think sometimes students struggle to figure out how to even go about this, right? How to even go about writing their essay. And so I've put the steps down here so you can know exactly how to approach this. You start by brainstorming the topics only. Think about, 5 to 6 topics that you could write about, that you would be excited to write about. And then outline your essay, the different components. You can go back to the components of a strong essay and write out for each of the 3 to 4 topics that you brainstorm, like outline who's the character, which is always going to be you, or what you're going through. What is the guide that comes through for you? What and how you're changed by going through what you're going through. So you can outline those components for 3 to 4 topics that you brainstorm, and that'll kind of help you understand which ones are the stronger ones. Once you have gotten your outlines done from your brainstorm topics, you will have chosen, like, this is the one that's the strong. And when you do that, that's the one that you're going to write your first draft for. And by writing your first draft, that means getting it on the paper, getting all of it out on the paper first without editing, which is something that a lot of people do when they're writing. They want to write and then make corrections at the same time. No, your first draft is just getting it out of you, just getting it on the page. And then once you do that, leave enough time for you to be doing this essay to walk away from it, to be able to walk away from it for 3 days and not even touch it after you've done a draft. Because letting it breathe gives you some space in your head to not be so consumed with it and have some fresh eyes when you go back to it. So with those fresh eyes, you go back to it, you're going to review it and make changes, right? And this is on your end. I have finalized the essay next, but after you review and edit and do draft 2, I want you to give it to somebody. Give it to your mom. Actually, I want you to give it to 2 people. I want you to give it to someone in your family that you trust to read and give you good insight, and somebody that's not in your family that will give you good insight. But I think what's critical, I'm going to say again, is to give yourself time enough to draft it and then walk away from it, edit it, and then give it to somebody else to read. And then finalize it based on the feedback you get from the person and the fresh eyes that you're bringing back to it because you've given yourself time to breathe. Guess what, y'all? This is where we are. We've gotten through all the components of what makes a strong college admissions essay. So we can certainly answer any questions that have come up for y'all that you are thinking about as someone who's helping someone write essays, or if you're the student yourself and you have some questions come up, now's the time for you to come on off mute. Does anybody have a question?
When do you recommend that all the essays be done by? What's a good target time frame?
There's 2, that's going to be based on when the student is applying, right? Because there's the early round, right? There are early decisions or early applications to be submitted. Those are happening in November. And then there's the regular admission, which sometimes happens in January. So that is going to be based on when their applications are due. But if they are based on when they are due, I would still have before I hit submit, I'd have my essay done a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks before I'm ready to submit my application.
When do you recommend they start?
For senior year? Are they in senior year?
Oh, well, she's in junior.
Oh, so here's for my juniors. I actually like my students to write their essays the summer before.
Okay.
Because when you are writing your essay and you have to compete with schoolwork, it's just pressure, unnecessary pressure. So if you are starting junior year, I recommend you do it the summer before you start school. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
You are welcome. Anything else come up for anybody else?
I have a question. First of all, thank you for letting me join. as a mentor to other students. My children have already finished with college. And I will put a plug for you, even though I'm just meeting you right now, that the person that we hired to help us saved my relationship between my children and I. Having someone else to hold them accountable and to challenge them on words that they wrote was worth every penny that I paid, because it's a fraught time when they're getting ready to leave the nest. So
yes, which is why my juniors, if you got time, let's do it the summer before.
yes,
Because the fraught time of trying to do it and compete with schoolwork just makes it all a little more the pot a little hotter and the boil a little harder.
yes, yes. But my question is, I just heard recently someone say that students should not write anything in their essays about mental health crises, any mental health in their family, because colleges are reluctant to bring that student onto the campus knowing that they might have some issues, which I know sounds horrible, but is that something that you have heard?
You know what? I can tell you, my daughter, who I have two children, which are on the screen. That's my son and daughter. My daughter actually had a mental break in school. She went to Pepperdine and she had a mental break in college. I would say that if that student's mental challenges are the thing that they work through, right? And if they have a solid plan in place, that is something that's life-changing for someone.
Right.
So I think you do it, but as long as that student's not setting themselves up to know that they're in a place of weakness. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
So I like my daughter's story of having a mental break in school. She ended up taking time off from school, but she studied psychology and statistics and is literally going for an interview for her master's tomorrow. So that's a real part of her story. And I wouldn't tell her to shy away from it, because her journey and recovery is just shines for her. So I think if that is the student's story, they shouldn't stay away from it. But the point is to show the strength in it.
Show the strength, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And thank you for what you said about using their unique voice. That's something we really struggle with our mentees. They want to sound, as you said, professional,
Sure.
or, and we keep telling them it is your story. They want to hear your story. And many of these students don't need to write an essay to get into the colleges they're going to, but they do for scholarships. And,
yes. Yes.
And that's it. It needs to be their story, not their picture of what they think a potential college student, how they would write. So.
Yes. Beppy, thank you for bringing that up. I just had that conversation this morning about a student, the college saying that the student doesn't need an essay to get in. So I actually advised someone this morning that just because the school doesn't ask for one doesn't mean you don't have to submit one. It actually helps you to stand out. It's in the same way that schools are not requiring test scores, but those test scores, that essay is going to be the thing to help you stand out, because 3/4 or more of the students aren't. So everything you can do in your application that will help you stand out, go ahead and go through the process, and especially essays, because while it may not help you with admissions, it's already something submittable to get that scholarship. So you could come out of it ending up with a scholarship at a school just because you submitted an essay. So thank you for bringing that up. So for any parents and students that's on here, that's, just like, oh, well, none of my schools or only one of my schools, the going above and beyond will always allow you to stand out. And so I suggest that you do it even when there's this this notion of it is, oh my God, it is optional. When things are optional, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it because it helps you stand out. Watson family, I haven't heard from y'all. Anything, y'all, any questions come up from y'all?
So my question is, what are like, what do you think would be like a good time for, like, I'm a junior in high school. So what do you think would be a good time for me to like start talking to like my counselors and like my band directors about like like what I need to do to get ready for college in the next like year and a half?
So you're a junior now?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and if you know, I heard you say band. So if you know you want to pursue band, the thing to do right now is to make sure you have a good relationship with your band director, with the conductor, and having that shine, right? If that's the area that you're most interested in, this is where you want to show your leadership, show your above and beyond, and making that connection with your band director. In terms of preparation for the application itself, like I said, having that essay done the summer before senior year. So I would start next semester, right? To start ideating, like things are happening in your life right now that could be something good to write about. So start a notebook that just on the side for like, oh, this might be a good topic for my essay. So you don't have to wait until you get there, right? So if you start jotting some notes down about good topics to cover now through next semester, then when you get to summer, that's when you can start to take on this process and write your actual essay and have enough time for somebody to read it, and have enough time for you to write it, let it have some time to breathe, and then edit it, right? Giving yourself time is going to be the most important part, as far as writing the essay. As far as talking to people about what you want to do, you make your guidance counselors aware right now that college is your goal. If you have schools of interest, you go in there and tell them your schools of interest, and have them, ask them for their help to allow you to set up, get some guidance from them, some check-ins from them as you go down the path to the schools that you want to, as well as ask them to introduce you to some schools, that other alumni from your high school have gone to that could work well for you. Especially if you know what you want to pursue, whether that's an extracurricular or if that's your area of study. You know what area of study you're looking at?
All I know is I want to do something in music. So, like my mom and me and my sister, we went to Northwestern, like probably like the beginning of this month, and I liked it a lot. And put music business as my major that I was interested in, and found out that I can do a lot more stuff with the music business degree than I can with like a regular performing or in teacher, like music education.
Yeah. So for me, that just says talk to your band director about, does he know anybody or she know anybody that is doing anything from the music business side, right? Because that could open up conversations into, oh, well, I know this person who went here and they're doing that, because making connections one-on-one with people, through people will always give you good insight. So it's about starting the conversations, and those conversations start at school, especially with your band director, because that's where you are every day, and then starting that conversation with your guidance counselor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, anything else come up for anybody?
Are you recording these? Because we may not be able to make the next two, but I definitely want to hear them.
Yes, they will be recorded, and I will I will send out after every one of them the link to the recording. All right, so here's your chance to know how you could work with me specifically on essays. I have 3 different things that you can do. I can work with you to review and help the finish of your essay. So there's that part. I can work with you one-on-one in terms of going through the process of developing the essays. And then I also have a college up next box, which is kind of allows you to it's your DIY. So I have a workbook that takes you through all of the steps and walks you through everything to develop your essay. And because you are here tonight, you get a discount on all of that. So you get a 15% discount on any of the packages that are offered or any of my services that are offered. And you will get an email after this with this information in it, as well as the services and an overview of what we went through tonight. So you can take advantage of that. So in every email that you've gotten from me, my email address is there. You are not leaving this call or this webinar without knowing how to get in touch with me, how to work with me. So reach out to me as things come up. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the next webinar. And if not, staying in touch with you along the process, because getting this done, this essay and all the components of your college admissions profile is the most important investment you can make. I know I was the first in my family, and going to college changed the trajectory of my life. And even as a parent now who was a first generation college graduate to now have gotten my daughter through college, and my son is currently in college, it's not a given that because you went to college, your kids will. So I'm saying right now, kudos to the parents making the investment of the time, the effort, and money that you put in place, because it's not a given that because you went that they will go. And it's very different from when we went to school, since we're of a certain age. Beppy, I love that you are working with your students, and I saw your email about speaking to the middle schoolers. I'd love to do that, so we'll connect on that. But let me know if anything else comes up tonight. Otherwise, we're gonna close this out. Here's my once, here's my twice, here's my thrice. I appreciate y'all coming on here. See y'all on the next one, hopefully, and reach out to me so we can work together. All right?
Thank you so much.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.